movie review this. One of my favorite films that I used to love as a kid, and this movie is Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium. Even though it's not a good movie, which I did look on the Rotten Tomatoes rating, I went on Rotten Tomatoes. Everybody hated it, but for me, to my opinion, I actually enjoyed it. It's a kids movie, so it is what it is. So let's get into it. So Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium was directed by Zach Helm and stars Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman, Jason Bateman, and Zach Mills. This film came out November 2007, and I was looking forward to reviewing this film because I did rewatch it last night and think, yeah, this movie's not good. But I'm gonna get into that later. But I have not watched this movie since last time I seen it. I saw it in theaters as a little kid when I was back in elementary school. I remember I actually did see the movie, and this was okay to me. But I find this movie pretty good. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, whatever. So let's get into it. So basically, what the movie starts off with a young woman named Natalie, who's played by Natalie Portman, who's named Monty Mahoney. She's a pianist, which stands for piano. She's really good at piano. She works at this movie takes place basically mostly in the entire movie takes place in New York, and then she works at this magical toy store where all these magical toys come to life and all that kind of stuff, and then she actually works for Mr. Magorium himself, who's played by Dustin Hoffman, and he's been living for like several hundred years. He's like 243 years old, like he said in the movie, and I'm like, oh boy, 243 years old. Now you got Rain Man playing. So let me get this straight. You get Rain Man playing a 243-year-old man working in a magical toy store. That is crazy. And Jane from the movie Thor. And Jane Foster, whatever her last name is, from the movie Thor, working in the magical toy store with him, and then we get Eric, who wears these magical hats. Well, no, I'm sorry, he wears these different types of hats every time we see him in a movie, played by Zach Mills. Then we get Jason Bateman, who's hired to be an accountant in this toy store, and everybody really comes in to like buy stuff, get stuff, play with things, build Legos or whatever. And this is a magical toy store though, well, oh yeah, and Mr. Magorium talking about he's leaving, which means he's dying, and he's running out of magic. So he gives Monty Mahoney the store, because Mahoney is the only one who can save the store, but she says she doesn't have any magic, and the store has gone out of control after Mr. Magorium has recently passed away. The entire store has gone black and gray, has become dark. The store has been shut down for good, and Mahoney is the only person who's the only main character who can save the store and get things back in shape. This movie is one of my favorite anticipated films that I've actually been wanting to review for a long time. I'm sure kids probably do not know nothing about this film yet, but they have to watch it first so they can understand what the movie's about. I heard this movie wasn't really that good, because like I said, I went on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie's bad. And yes, it's bad. It's a terrible movie, because I feel like 20th Century Fox had turned this movie mixed with two films, and that will be Jumanji and Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Well, mostly Willy Wonka, actually. But I enjoy this magical toy store movie, but this movie does remind me of more like, it does remind me of Jumanji and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I'm going to tell you why. So let me get straight. With Jumanji, we have all these animals just coming out of nowhere. We get a lemur, we get a zebra. Well, Mr. Magorium has a pet zebra in the movie. And then for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's kind of like a factory in the movie, but that's different. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Mr. Wonka's factory has just candy and a chocolate fountain, and for Mr. Magorium, he has a magical toy store. Because I feel like Mr. Magorium is kind of like a really good, sort of like a version of himself as Willy Wonka. Well, actually, I take that back. Sorry. I feel like, for me, I feel like Mr. Magorium is kind of like like a different version of Willy Wonka, and I think one of my biggest issues with the movie that the special effects. This film is not really taking itself seriously. It's not taking itself time. This movie can be a little bit rushed from all the characters that's been going through. I'm not really disappointed with this movie. I can't blame it. I just don't understand why 20th Century Fox had made this movie mixed with Jumanji and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory a little bit. But there's some really good moments there's some really good touching moments. There's some touching scenes in the movie. Well, there's on probably at least one or two touching scenes. But the relationships between Mr. Magorium and Monty Mahoney gives that father and daughter relationship that actually captures in their hearts and also captures in my heart. And this movie doesn't really explain what's going on. But we don't get a backstory of Monty Mahoney's backstory. We don't get Mahoney's backstory. We don't get Mr. Magorium's backstory. We don't get any of the backstories. And the reason why, I'm just like, where are the backstories? And this movie is not really giving a proper message. But only one message I think they have to say is like a relationship figure between a father figure and a daughter figure. Because Mr. Magorium is like that. It's like that grandfather to. It's like that grandfather to all the kids that come to the store, and he's just like, "Hey guys, I have a magical toy store." And Mr. Magorium, I gotta say, played by Dustin Hoffman. I love Dustin Hoffman. I'm a big fan of Dustin Hoffman. He's one of my favorite actors. I understand he's old. The movie I actually love the most of his movies is Rain Man. Rain Man. Rain Man was easily one of the best films I've seen from him, including Kramer versus Kramer that I really was looking forward of reviewing. I'm actually looking forward to watching Kramer versus Kramer because I don't know what the movie's about, but I actually really gotta watch it. Period. But Rain Man is a really good movie with him and with both Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise are both great in the film. They give really good performances, and Dustin Hoffman, or I should say, Rain Man, as a magical old man. He's been working in this toy store for quite some time, or I shall say several years. Mr. Magorium has been living for like several hundred years, like a long time. He's like 243 years old, like he said in the movie. And I'm like, I can't believe they got you playing a 243-year-old man. I mean, who does that? Dustin Hoffman is really good as Mr. Magorium. I don't have a problem with him as Mr. Magorium. It's just that sometimes we don't see him a lot sometimes. And that does hurt his feelings sometimes. And you actually can see it in his eyes that he does remind you a little bit like Mr. Wonka coming into his chocolate factory. And for Monty Mahoney, it's kind of like that person be like, for Monty Mahoney as the pianist, Natalie Portman is really good as Monty Mahoney, but I feel like Natalie Portman is trying to steal the entire movie because I feel like this movie is more like a Natalie Portman movie instead of a Dustin Hoffman film. But I want this movie supposed to be about Mr. Magorium himself and also his relationship with Monty Mahoney and Jason Bateman and Eric, Zach Mills actually. But I don't have a problem with Natalie Portman, even though she's really fun. She's okay in this movie, but I feel like Mr. Magorium, played by Dustin Hoffman, is also pretty good. I enjoy Dustin Hoffman's movie. Like this movie and the other film. Chef is actually one of his best films as well with Jon Favreau. And with Natalie Portman, I'm just thinking. So you guys got Jane. So you guys got Jane, and you got Jane from the movie Thor in this movie, working in a magical toy store in New York. Wow. So I guess, hey guys, I think. What if they say, hey guys, hey Thor, what's up? Jane is working in a magical toy store. My God. Yeah, but it is what it is. Jason Bateman, I gotta say, Jason Bateman plays like a sort of like a desperate man he's hired to be an accountant. He's hired to be an accountant because he doesn't believe in magic because he has never seen magic at all. He hasn't seen anything come to life in the store. He's just like, okay, first of all, is this like Barney and Friends or is this like Booba or Wizards of Waverly Place or Harry Potter? What is this? What do you mean there's magic in the store? What is this, some kind of a joke? And no, this is not a joke. This is very serious. And I enjoy Jason Bateman in this movie. I think he's pretty good in this movie. But he's not. But his character is just not taking it serious. But it's not Jason Bateman himself. It's his character that's just like, yeah, whatever. There's magic in the store. I'm gonna get out of here. He doesn't really believe in magic at all in this movie. And also, I enjoy Jason Bateman. I enjoyed him in the movie Juno. I enjoyed him in Hancock. Those are, you know, I enjoyed him in some other films like Disney's Zootopia. Like he played Nick Wilde in the movie. I know, duh. But I enjoy Jason Bateman. He's a likable actor. I don't think we've seen him in a while, except for he's playing in this some sort of Netflix Hulu series called Ozark that my grandmother and my mom probably watches, and I'm like, okay, Ozark, really? But Zach Mills is really, I gotta say, Zach Mills is a young boy in this movie. So Zach Mills plays Eric. He wears these types. He wears these types of hats in the movie. In the movie, the entire film, you see him wear all these different types of hats. There's a scene in the movie where he's wearing a sombrero on his head, and I was like, "You're wearing a sombrero? Where'd you get it from? Mexico?" I'm just saying, and also, he actually does. There's a scene in the movie where he takes Jason Bateman to his bedroom, where he has all these collections of hats all over his room, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You know what, dude? I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna leave you alone. Not gonna judge. I'm saying with all due respect. But I think he's really good. He doesn't have any friends except for Monty Mahoney's his only friend. And I do feel bad for him that he doesn't have plenty of friends. And there's a scene in the movie where Eric is actually building like this Abraham Lincoln out of probably some sort of Lincoln logs. Probably toy Lincoln logs out of wood. And he makes like an Abraham Lincoln statue out of Lincoln, some sort of Lincoln logs. And then everybody, all parents and kids are like looking at him like, are you serious right now? You're gonna take all the Lincoln logs and put this up? Dude. And he like, sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I think I took all the pieces. I think I'm a jerk. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. And I'm like, dude, why would you take all those pieces and make a Abraham Lincoln? Wow, bro. Maybe he understands it. He also lived with his mom, and I'm like, wait, where's the dad? There's no dad in this movie. You know what? I'm gonna leave you guys alone. But I feel like this movie. Let's talk about the entire film. So there's probably at least one touching scene in the movie, and that is Mr. Magorium. It's his last day, starting to live. So there's a scene in the movie where Mr. Magorium and Monty Mahoney are dancing on some bubble wrap in the park, and then she was like, "You're gonna live," and he was like, "Not anymore. It's my last day. It's my last day. Sorry, Mahoney. It's gonna be my last day of living." He'll be like, and she was looking at him like, "You gotta be kidding me. There's some serious stuff going on." But this movie's not really taking itself time to slow it down just a little bit. I just wanted the director to actually take this movie seriously by slowing things down. But the only thing I enjoy about the film is there's one touching scene I didn't like and also Mr. Magorium is talking about some King Lear speech. That night when him and Monty, there's a scene in the movie where him and Monty Mahoney go back in the store that night, and then Mahoney's crying because Mr. Magorium is leaving, because he's losing magic. He's about to die. But before he did that, he's like, when he actually did a King Lear speech, he's like, when King Lear died in Act 5. You know what Shakespeare has written? He has written, he dies. And that was one of the most touching scenes. That touching scene makes you just want to cry and have all your tears coming out of your eyes, and you're just like, Mr. Magorium, don't go. But Mr. Magorium is probably Mr. Magorium is doing this is because Mr. Magorium is doing this for Monty Mahoney, and I'm glad the relationships actually did work for Mr. Magorium and Monty Mahoney, and Mr. Magorium actually gives her this wooden cube that he actually gets out of his some sort of dishwasher. I'm like, dude, why you have a wooden cube in your dishwasher and you have toys in here? I mean, who puts toys in a dishwasher? That is so weird. But it's Mr. Magorium. Mr. Magorium been living in the store for Mr. Magorium been living in the store for all these years. He's been living for quite some time. He's 243 years old, and I'm like, a 243-year-old man living for several hundred years, since to the past, to the present, to probably to the future. But I'm like, why not make him age 70 in this movie? I mean, that would have been a better choice for Dustin Hoffman to play a 70-year-old man instead of a 243-year-old man. Because I feel like this movie does remind you, because most of these characters act like a bunch of cartoon characters sometimes. But this movie's a little cartoony with the CGI magical stuff. It's a little bit, because sometimes the magic looks a little bit like cartoonish. It looks a little cartoony, this entire film. And the relationships between Mr. Magorium and Natalie, Mr. Magorium himself, Monty Mahoney herself, actually gives they give really best relationships. Because like I said, they actually give you that daughter, because Mr. Magorium has that father figure, and Monty Mahoney has that daughter figure, and they actually did give that really good daughter-father relationship, and that was one of the best scenes I enjoy about the entire movie. And this movie was fine to my opinion. I find this movie still pretty good. You know, it's part of my childhood. This is a child's movie. This is a kid's movie. It's rated G, and I'm like, why is this rated G? I mean, this is rated G. I'm gonna leave it. You know what? 20th Century Fox. I don't blame the director. It's not his fault. It's not the writer's fault. The writers sometimes just trying to rush. Sometimes the writer is trying to rush through from what they want to do for the characters to make them audition, but the writers were trying to figure out what can they make this movie even about. But this movie sometimes can be a little bit too critical to watch. But for children are going to be, well, not really critical to watch. I take that back. But for kids are going to enjoy it. It's a kids movie. Little kids are going to love it. But adults, like, this movie sucks. I'd rather watch a different movie like Transformers, for example, than watching this. Or I'd rather watch Rain Man and Thor than watching this. But I'm just like, well, I don't blame the movie. I love this movie. This movie has been part of my heart. I did support this film. I love supporting crappy movies sometimes. But like Osmosis Jones, for example, that's a kids movie. Kids have to understand what the movie's about. But the adults just sit there like, this movie's not good. This movie's not teaching kids other things about the human body. And that's why I support crappy movies sometimes, like the Transformers movies, for example. I support those movies because I'm a big Transformers fan. And I'm glad this movie actually, I'm glad this film actually tried. I understand that, but tell you the truth, every director makes mistakes. They make mistakes sometimes. Writers make mistakes too. Screenwriters make mistakes. Producers make mistakes. I can't blame them. I never blame them. But I think it would have been really cool if they made a prequel of Mr. Magorium. Like, say, they'd be like, hey, Mr. Magorium 2, back to the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning of how it all started. Of how Mr. Magorium been living for like several hundred years. And that's why this film actually should have gone back to the past. How about do this? Let's go back to the past, and then let's get into the rest of the story. But all of a sudden it says Monty Mahoney's first and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, why not call it Mr. Magorium? Why not call it Mr. Magorium and Monty Mahoney in the movie? Like, that would have been a better title. But they call it Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium. It does remind you of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Jumanji, sort of. But it's not the movie's fault. I can't blame it. I blamed a little bit like 20th Century Fox. Could at least took this movie a little bit seriously sometimes. But that's all I gotta say for this movie review. And I have a figure coming. I have a Studio Series figure coming from Amazon today. He's coming today. I will review him. I'll let you guys know if he well, who knows? But yeah, I have a Studio Series figure coming from Amazon. He's coming today. So excited. I can't wait to review him. But I'll let you guys know. I'll let you guys know. But that's all I gotta say for this movie review from Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium. If you haven't seen it, watch it. But I feel like they could have took this movie seriously anyway. But that's all I gotta say for this movie review from Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium. And be sure, so that's all I gotta say. So be sure to like, subscribe, press the notification button, follow me on Instagram, comment down below, and I'll see you on my next video today. Stay tuned and thank you for watching.